what a beautiful morning. Oh, I thought this was a Logan County amateur hour this morning.
Yeah.
Good morning. Welcome to Viewpoint. It is a beautiful morning. It's a Gordon McCrae day. That's what I always call it.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, what
yes.
a beautiful morning. Anyway, this is Viewpoint, your program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. And we certainly have a great friend, a great personality, and always had a marvelous perspective on what the heck's going on in the world, especially in the agricultural world.
Plus, he's brilliant.
Well, there's that to be said, too.
We might need a third or fourth opinion on that.
Well, we got four of them right there.
I don't think you get any arguments out there, John. We're going to go to John in just a few minutes. We always, yes, Judas and John will both, and Mr. Ash, he remembers, too, that we always try to start Viewpoint with a kudo or two. We're not going to single out Chris Grau because he wouldn't like that. He'd step aside. He had a lot of folks helping him on this big up and smoke weekend, pigs and swigs as they called it. It was a great weekend, and the reason I want to mention it is the kudos go to the community at large, and those in particular who have been working on this event for so long. I make it a point to visit with these folks, the vendors, the contestants, and so forth. So Saturday morning I went down and waltzed around the courthouse square a little bit and introduced myself to some people whom I had no idea who they were. And it turns out that the preponderance of them were newcomers to this contest. And I said, well, how are you getting along? How are we treating you here? And what's your experience? And to a person, they were just very, very laudatory about Lincoln, and in particular the people who put the show on. And they said it was really well. They said, we've been around, we go to a lot of these, and we've heard this was real good, and it is real good. So kudos to all the folks who work so hard on Up and Smoke Pigs and Swigs weekend. You sent some people out of here who were very, very impressed with what we do here at Lincoln.
Good, good.
So I hope somebody will convey that to Mr. Grau, both of my listeners.
I have an issue.
Oh yes. Yes. Well, we have a technical issue.
We need engineers.
Okay. Oh yes, here we are. There will be a slight pause while we fix the microphone.
That's okay. I could just hold it.
Yeah, there you go. All righty.
It's okay.
Mr. Ash is to the. There you go. All right.
Oh, Jim, you're so smart.
It's called a slip of the wrist.
That's why he's rich, is because he's smart.
That's why he gets big bucks. You bet you, right?
Or call him boss.
Anyway, it was a big weekend for Lincoln. I hope the folks had a good time. Those folks that were here went away happy, even if they didn't win any big prize money. They were well treated. So go right ahead.
Well, hallelujah. That's good news.
So it's a nice weekend. There's a lot of people put a lot of work in there. Why don't we get down to introducing our guest? He's been very kind. Man's retired now. He's only got 4 more jobs than he had before. His wife's got him working harder than he did when he was gainfully employed. So go ahead.
Thank you for coming, John Fulton. He's been one of our favorite guests for a number of years now.
Yeah, Lord's been very, very kind, particularly Logan County Fair Week when he's been so busy, and he always found time to give us a few minutes. And but John has always had time to give advice to folks, city folks who don't know a doggone thing about farming, but they've got a problem with a bush or a plant.
Yes,
and
yes.
John's been there to help them.
When we talk about the quote farm advisor, I think we forget the townies that come to you, because you know all about the flora and the fauna, and
he knows more about flora than he does fauna, I think.
Well, yeah, I think so.
Well,
let's talk about the Logan County Extension, the history of it, John. When did it start, and how did the Logan County Farm Advisor? What was their first name?
Well, it was a farm advisor back in the day, and for those with some background history, basically Farm Bureau and Extension were one and the same in the early days. You had to sell so many Farm Bureau memberships in order to get a farm advisor to support that position. And so Logan County chartered in December of 1917.
Oh my.
And so, guess what? That makes this a 100-year celebration, and Farm Bureau is having a lot of activities at various times throughout the year, and both publicity campaigns and a few events. But that was kind of the beginning. Back in 1918, they actually got somebody hired and on site back in February of 1918, and I had the first annual report.
Really?
I've carried it around for the 35 years or so I've been here, and finally I thought that probably ought to be in the library over at the U of I. So as I was cleaning things out, I sent the first annual report over to the
I'll bet that was
university.
interesting. I'll bet that was really interesting.
We've got copies, and I've given some to Farm Bureau and so forth, and lots of interesting things. Back in those days, of course, one of the big crops was oats. You know, everybody had lots of horses.
Lots of livestock.
Lots of horses, you know, that was the power mill back in those days too. So, you know, the number of horses was much greater, and everybody had some livestock that had a farm pretty much, and so things really changed from size and what people produced on their farms to today's current trends.
And a family made a living on how many acres minimum in 1917? 80?
Well, I think the average was probably a little over 80 acres, and it varied from those who had other gainful employment or kindly in a family tract where several kind of lumped together and may have had 400 acres or something between 3 siblings or something like that. You know how it used to be. Everybody used to be neighbors up and down the road, but also relatives.
Yes.
You know, all the cousins and everything would be up and down certain areas of the county. And some places it's still like that, but it's kind of dwindling.
Yeah.
It is. We're so mobile now, you know, but that was kind of a fun time, too.
When did the Scully operation begin here? When did Mr. Scully Sr. come through the county with his horse and his spade and began to
it was the it would have been right after the Civil War, because most of the ground was bought with Civil War soldier script that they paid the soldiers with, and some land-grant college script, as I understand it. Everybody kind of wonders where land-grant comes from, but that's because the federal government gave that university land script to sell to get funds to build the universities. So like Illinois ground would have been like Pennsylvania and Ohio. So Ohio State University in Pennsylvania, the government gave grounds in Illinois for those universities to sell to get the money to build the facilities. And University of Illinois, that ground was out in Nebraska and the Dakotas, and you know, it just kept moving westward as the country got settled and the government had ground. But that's how Scully's bought a lot of the ground. They bought up land-grant college script and a lot of the Civil War payment script that they paid the soldiers with, and
it's all foreign language, isn't it?
Well, it's so interesting. I never heard about that before, and how foresighted of them. A lot of people didn't go to college back then.
Well, yeah, but you know, when a soldier didn't get paid and got a certificate for 20 acres or whatever, you know, a lot of them sold them because they didn't want 20 acres.
Yeah, they wanted the money, whatever it could be.
Whatever it could be. And so the Scullys bought that, and
that's
probably
really.
not face value all the way, but
probably not.
Maybe not.
John, who was our first advisor, and then do you know from your minutes, who were some of the early folks in the early 1917 Farm Bureau?
Well, a lot of the names have remained the same with descendants taking over, but the first farm advisor was Elmer Ebersol, and he was here until 1921, and then Checkley.
J.H. Checkley
came after that.
Second guy.
Some remember him.
He was an amazing man.
Then N.H. Anderson.
Nelson Henry Anderson.
Came in 34. Then several will remember Fred Hoppen, who came in 49. And Harold Brinkmeyer came in 56, and Charlie Englehart in 67. So that's kind of the history. And right in between Hoppen and Brinkmeyer, there was a big change, and the farm advisor thing went out the window. And there was a lawsuit by some of the other farm organizations to cause Extension and Farm Bureau to split.
Really?
Because why?
The Farmers Union and so forth, you know, and the Grange didn't think that was quite appropriate to have government employees allied with one farm organization, which wasn't theirs. So back in the 50s, it became a federal decree. Illinois was kind of the mother bed of that relationship, and so Illinois, the divorce didn't become final until about 62. But they threatened to withhold all government funds to states, which didn't separate the Extension from Farm Bureau at that point. So
interesting. Yes.
So back in the day of especially Fred Hoppen and before, they were the farm advisor and the Farm Bureau manager. They were dual employees on both sides, and I believe Harold Brinkmeyer had some of that time as well. And then after that, they were just Extension employees and not employed by Farm Bureau anyhow.
Jay's Checkley was the second guy in line. That's interesting. Nobody but me remembers that guy.
Oh, there's a few. There's a few, Bill.
A few of us out, but he was an interesting man. I wonder what that position paid back in those days.
Well, I couldn't tell you.
I'm just curious to know.
And he went on to become big in the Federal Land Bank.
Yes.
I believe it was that
Mr. Checkley?
Yes. A lot of those folks were part-time farmers and trained as ag teachers, or some of them had even taught at universities and so forth, that became the early farm advisors. And as they saw a need, they would also go on to fill that niche and create a new business or an opportunity, you know. And probably one of the biggest stories is the DeKalb Seed Company. That was started by DeKalb County Farm Bureau and the farm advisor, and
look how big that came.
Yeah, that became pretty big. So pretty soon they didn't have quite as much time to manage the Farm Bureau office.
Right.
But you know, there was always those niches, whether it was in ag finance or the farm business, farm management record system. Back in those days, it was Farm Bureau Farm Management Record System, but a lot of the farm advisors and ag advisors created or took leadership in creating some of those support services for the industry.
What has changed, John, since you became Extension Advisor? What year was that, sir?
Well, I started in Sangamon County in 1980 and Logan in 83.
83 to 2017. What would be the biggest change that you can think of from 83 to the present?
Well, the farms have gotten bigger or smaller, one extreme or the other. The fastest growing, everybody thinks, is the very large farms, but it's actually the very small ones.
Really?
People
are there specialty
1 to 8 acres for specialty grains, flowers, you know, produce, truck patches, you know, everything old is new again. You know, a lot of people don't know what the truck patch term means, but, you know, we see a lot of that anymore, and a lot of those folks go to farmers markets and have roadside stands and that kind of thing.
Which reminds me, the hospital farmers market at the Logan County Fair Saturdays in the morning, that's a very neat thing, and people, they're just not Logan County folks that come in here. There are producers that bring stuff from Springfield and Bloomington and so forth. There's part of the specialty that you just mentioned, I presume. And you know, it's really neat. There's a lot of nice stuff out there. Yeah,
that's been a growing area, and Extension is probably focused more on those small farms, locally grown, in the last reorganization, and kind of scaled back the commercial agriculture field presence in order to do that, because that's one of the USDA mandates, is to work on the so-called food deserts where there isn't food available. So those folks also worked in areas where they wanted community gardens so that they could have food in areas of Springfield, Decatur, Peoria, Chicago that did not have grocery stores. You know, you don't realize how many people in those larger communities without transportation and so forth, they get a lot of their things at the Casey's or the convenience store attached to the gas station or something, and you know, they don't have the ready access to Kroger's or Aldi's or Walmart even, you know. So
to fresh foods and a healthier diet.
The bureaucracies that you've seen have grown significantly. At the very top of the food chain, the Department of Agriculture, in the President's Cabinet, we have the Agricultural Department, and to which we've had people appointed. We had one locally, didn't know sick'em about farming. It was a political appointment, and well, that's kind of unfortunate. But what do you think about the? Let's get into politics. Nobody can fire you now.
Oh, we're in trouble if we do that. But we better limit the scope. Yeah.
You can't get fired now. So.
Well,
but
I'm a retiree. Yeah.
I don't think they mess with your pension, which you've earned certainly in spades. But we have people at the top that don't know sick'em about their office.
Well, and as you're around for a while, it takes people who know how to maneuver things and organize them, as well as know policy items. And so the same thing goes for you or me or a state legislator or a county board member. You know, a lot of it's not how much they know, but who they choose to listen to as their advisors and so forth. And you know, that advisor circle is what makes somebody very fortunate and basically will get everything done correctly, and maybe even look into the future a little bit. And if they've got a bad advisory group, they kind of spin wheels and don't ever get anything done. And you can see that all the way from the President of the United States down to, you know, other people, no matter what office or appointment, or you know, even people working with health boards and so forth. You know, it's kind of that brain trust that makes things go or not go. So I agree that they ought to know something about it if they're going to be the Secretary of Agriculture or Undersecretary. But you know, if they have good people that can provide them that information or confidants, then they can probably be okay. And sometimes it's pretty valuable to have a person
well connected,
very, very entrenched with being able to move legislation and policy and so forth, you know, and knows the nuts and bolts. You can have great ideas, and if you don't know how to do it, it doesn't happen. So it can go both ways. So I think it's important that they know a little bit and have a good inner circle.
Once again, I say, nothing's ever simple, is it?
Oh, no.
No.
John, when you were in your position, to whom did you report? I wanted in the food chain, going back up the line.
Well, usually it was a regional director, and when I started, we had 10, then we went to 8, then 6, 5. Now we're down to, then we had 5, and now we're down to 3. So that's one administrative position that's changed. And then the other thing, in the last reincarnation as a county director, I was the supervisor for even the professional staff in the office. So they no longer reported to the regional director. They reported to that county director over the 3 to 5 or 6 counties, depending on where you were at. So a little bit different management scheme, pluses and minuses to all of it.
Yeah. Sure. We have a management scheme here at WLCN, and that means that we have to report periodically to our sponsors, and we're going to do that right now. Go right ahead, Mr. Ash. Having paid obeisance to our sponsors, we're right back here in the studio at WLCN. Program is Viewpoint, of course, when we appear each Wednesday morning. Judith, Busby, and I try to get interesting guests, and down through the years, we've had an outstanding guest from time to time, one of Logan County's true citizens. John Fulton retired recently. Not Lincoln, not Logan. You had a 3-county extension advisor responsibility: Logan, Macon, and
Menard, and Sangamon.
Yep. Yes. How did that evolve? That you have to take on those extra 2 counties, John?
Well, if you wanted to stay employed, that was now the geographic area.
Okay.
And with 3 kids, it's nice to be employed.
Yeah. John recently got a really big raise when his last of his kids graduated from college. Well, that made a major raise.
Yeah, that's been a few years ago, but they're
out doing well now.
Yeah.
John, is there one experience down through your years that you've been here that kind of stuck out in your mind as something rather unusual? This is kind of an off-the-cuff and quick remark to you that you haven't had time to even think about. But
well, there's been several, but I maybe shouldn't talk about them because some of them might recognize
the names will name change to protect the
They
innocent.
probably recognize the unique circumstances as well. But, it was always something different. Let's put it that way. You know.
I bet that was one of the best parts of your job. There was never anything the same. It was just.
Did you ever come across an irate farmer for some reason at all that was really whiz for no good reason, or maybe a good reason in his mind?
Oh yeah, and same thing with gardeners.
My rutabagas didn't come, and you told me wrong.
Well, or worse yet, the guy sprayed and it killed my potatoes or something, and it was actually frozen off. Potatoes don't freeze off very often, but a few years ago we had that. They did come back eventually, but I didn't know anything. I was a young whippersnapper.
Well, he's an old
whippersnapper.
John, you and Sherry have some plans. We visited off-air out the office a while ago, and I asked if you planned any travel plans. And the reason I bring this up is you told a unique story about the family farm over in Germany, and some of your family members finding that because they had a picture that had been passed down through the years. I think it's a very interesting human interest story, so recount that if you will, please.
Oh, okay. My oldest brother-in-law went to Germany with his daughter, son-in-law, and wife, and so he photocopied a picture that my mother-in-law, his mom, had, and it was of her great-great-grandmother's farm in Germany, which she immigrated from. And so he knew it was in the Holstein region of Germany, so he went over with a picture, and knowing it was someplace the size of Illinois and Indiana combined in that little geographic area.
Which was a pretty
and was
good
showing
size.
in this picture photocopy to picture people on the street, and finally one day he was in this little town, he hopped out of the car and the lady was hanging out laundry, and he stuck the picture in her face, and she started hollering at him in German, and he didn't understand, and she didn't understand his comebacks, and the daughter came out, and what was going on, she spoke English, and he held the picture up, and she says 1.5 kilometers down this road, and
That's an amazing
they
thing.
found it.
Just amazing.
When they got there, it had actually been set up as a historical site and still had the thatch barn roof on and the barns are attached to the homes, and so and they had the ownership history, and they had the same picture hanging in the hallway. So quite a story of somebody who is not too shy to knock on a door or stick a picture in somebody's face. He found it.
And scare them half to death.
Yeah, he found it.
Oh, I think that's really interesting, and he had the moxie to do exactly what you just described, just to take this picture and stick it up and say, and not being able to parlay or sprechen Sie, I should say, sprechen Sie Deutsch. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Go right ahead with your what was your last duty here when you locked the key in your desk and closed the door for one more time, John?
At which office?
Really.
Yeah, come to think about it. Yeah.
Oh my, there's a lot of checklists and stuff. The office staff was nice enough to throw a little reception on the Monday before last Monday, and it's kind of unique. We had to work out the schedule with my wife, so she had Thursday, I got Monday, and so forth, but had that. But basically given over the checklist of things to do for the job to my supervisor, and a copy of all the computer files that would be banished into Neverland. Because when you leave, they wipe your stuff out. Nobody's supposed to be able to get into it. So
Really?
What about job history? You're working on Farm X, and there's a lot of things that people need to know about Farm X.
Well, I gave those pertinent files to my regional director, and he could pass them along, and other things for particularly the staff files and the fiscal files and those kinds of things. And then a lot of them I just copied onto the shared drive so they would be accessible by anybody in the unit, could look
That's
them up.
another thing that you experienced, the evolution of computers.
Yeah.
And how it's changed your work habits and your what you did and how you recorded what you did every day.
Yeah, well, most people would probably agree paperless really doesn't mean paperless. It's created more paper, but yeah, it's easier to search through some of the computer things most of the time than paper. I won't say all the time. Sometimes it's there and just can't find it. But yeah, my predecessor in Logan County, Charlie Engelhardt, that's what he left Extension to start his Engelhardt Ag Systems computer consulting and software business, and he was a real pioneer in that. And the kids say, "What kind of computer did you have in college?" And I said, "Smith Corona, and I had electric." I don't think they made computers. No, they didn't.
Probably carried a slipstick on your belt.
Well, I had a cartridge one. It was one of the newer ones. But,
648-5510. There must be among the two or three of you out there listening, at least one of you might have some experience with working with John Fulton, or just want to wish him well. So I urge you to make a call in here in the next 15 minutes. 648-5510. John, who is your successor now? And did that person live in Logan County or somewhere else? Because there's three
They're
counties.
just in the process of, I think they have a slate of candidates that will interview for the position shortly. So
Didn't they know you were going to retire, for goodness sakes? You thought they'd had that lined up and ready to go.
Well, but they couldn't start on it till we signed papers, and the president of the university gave a little 1% or whatever 2% mid-year pay increase, so they couldn't complete any of our forms until they got all that through the system. So the best laid plans were derailed by a small mid-year pay increase.
But your office staff has been working under your tutelage for a long time, so they can probably carry on pretty well.
The programs are going on, and my replacement will, I assume, be a full-time administrative person like I was probably supposed to be the last 5 or 6 years with fiscal staff program responsibilities and making those community connections.
But you had to travel a lot once they went into this tri-county arrangement. It was not uncommon for you to be in maybe all three counties in a given day.
That happened a few times, yes, and that will go to the next person. And it's much different than it used to be, where you had one county could make those relationships and were focused in subject matter, and now the county directors are not subject matter. They have the educators doing all that. So if they ever get the state budget straightened out, and maybe they can hire back a small farms educator to replace the one who retired a year and a half ago, and do some more programming in that area. But right now it's pretty much youth development, the family nutrition program for SNAP SNAP Ed.
For what now?
SNAP, the Food Stamp Education Program.
Okay.
We have
She's not
4
there
staff
yet.
members.
But she's almost there.
We have 4 staff members who do educational programming to recipients or eligible audience for schools and adults. And
I didn't know that.
Well, now there's an interesting,
Yeah.
interesting bit of education that's necessary. Those folks who fall in that category, I suspect, or if you think about it, they need a lot of advice and help on how to be a part of that.
well, and the main thing that this group does is do the educational work on healthy exercise, the diet, saving food dollars. Some of the issues, particularly in the Springfield and Sangamon County area with the food deserts, local community gardens, and well, that's kind of one of the neat things. If you get the horticulture educator, a small farms educator, and a couple youth people and the SNAP Ed all working together to do a 4-H community garden in a particular area.
Well, then, are you involved with this program that's going on at noontime at the junior high here in Lincoln?
Well, I'm retired, Judy, but
Yeah.
I think the SNAP Ed person in Logan County is working with doing some programming with it. The one you
The
mentioned
lunches
is
for
really
the kids.
church-driven, but if there's some educational materials handed out and so forth, I think that's what the person with Extension is doing.
Yeah, that was a good idea because there were an awful lot of kids who were taking advantage of free or reduced
Sure.
meals at school. Well, of course, there's no school in the summer, so.
Nope.
The average Joe and Josephine Smith out there in the street think of a farm advisor as being helpful only to those who actively farm. Au contraire, as they say in Parisian. John Fulton probably received as many direct agricultural queries that he did about what's wrong with my fruit trees or how to get my rutabagas to grow fatter. You had a lot of folks who garden at home come to you for advice.
Oh, sure. And a lot of landlords as well, with cash rent or management type issues and questions. But the horticulture really went for something kind of small back when I started to probably a major part of it as we got towards the end of my career anyhow, because as one of the horticulture people puts it, horticulture is everybody's agriculture, and so you've got so many more people doing the horticulture thing, and that's probably a very important part, especially for the smaller communities like Lincoln and Logan County, because we have some good people in the community, but it's not like you have 6 or 7 major landscape nurseries who provide some of that expertise.
No.
And so you have some smaller family-run stores or the big R Walmart or so forth. So just not the sheer number of people to assist the community members.
Well, surely since you've been here since 1983, you've seen a lot of change in your job.
Oh, sure. I remember several springs. All I did was get done driving around looking at black cutworm damage, and I even had a 2-way radio system back to the office so they could call me and tell me there was another one close to where I was at and so forth. And that was before cell phones, people.
Sure.
Now, there are some folks in the county who operate, for want of a better word, I'm not sure that's the correct word, but have apiaries. We have some bee specialists in the county. Would you say a half a dozen or more?
Well, and there's a couple of them that are very sizable, with 100+ type thing.
Now, is that encouraged? Because there's been a problem for the people who have an apiary that the bees are getting sick and dying.
Or
Well, they just kind of leave.
Pardon?
They just kind of leave.
They leave?
Yeah.
What's the matter with Logan County?
Found a better drinks down the road.
They go somewhere else.
Drinks are cheaper down the road, so.
I had to laugh. My daughter-in-law said, I caught a swarm. Then she said, but I think it's my own.
Really? Yeah.
Went from point A to point B. She says, I'm just learning. But honeybees are important. That's one of the thrusts behind the pollinator programs that the USDA has put into the conservation program.
Mm-hmm. Well, I believe we must have a caller here, Judith Kay. We'll work
Go,
it.
John.
You put your
Listen
headset
on,
on, John. And I think we're ready. Go ahead, caller, if you're ready.
Hey, John, just want to thank you for all the help during the Logan County Fair, during all the years that you've been out there and we've been out there. You make other people's lives a little easier as far as getting winning information, and the girls over at the office can help us with names like Zigolowski and Jodlowski and make it a lot easier. But you've been a tremendous amount of help during the past years, and we appreciate it.
Well, I hope that continues under the current staff. I'm sure they'll take good care of you this year as well, and just let them know, and they try and accommodate. So
Okay,
thank you.
Thanks a lot, John.
Yes.
Well, it won't be quite the same. It'll be pretty much, but it won't be quite the same without John Fulton out there. That was nice of the gentleman to call in and express his appreciation. He being probably acquainted with Logan County Fair for a number of years and involved in Logan County Fair administration and so forth. That's a big deal, setting up. Just describe how a young man who's out there and raising steers for competition, how does he start, John?
Well, a lot of them in Logan County start in the calf scramble.
Oh,
yeah.
sure.
That used to be a big deal.
It still is.
And now they've even got a chicken scramble, haven't they?
Oh, yeah. They don't keep those, though. I think they give McNugget coupons or something like that.
There might be some city-fied folks out there who, honest to goodness, do not really know what a calf scramble is. Go ahead, John.
Well, basically, the people fill out forms with indicating their knowledge and desire, wanting to have a calf project and some experience in some kind of large animal project, because, as Bill alluded to, there's a lot just goes into feeding and breaking them to lead, and the veterinary care, the hoof trimming, grooming, and and then trying to get them to look good at the end of all that. Mm-hmm. So the calf scramble's a great opportunity. They turn the calves loose. The kids have to halter them and lead them up to the trailer type thing, and then they get them back right after the fair if they're a little older, or otherwise they'll get them in the fall. They'll take them home, raise them for the year, and get some assistance from the scramble committee and the breeders and so forth, and then they'll show them again at the fair the following year. So the timing works out really well on cattle to do that.
And the one big thing a youngster takes away from any youngster on the farm who has to who does enter a contest for a little bitty cup and $2 or $3. Responsibility is the derivative of that. They learn responsibility and what it means to be in charge of something, and that be their own jurisdiction, that they have to take care of it or it's not going to work.
Well, that's certainly true, and I'm a big advocate of kids being in youth programs. I'm not saying it has to be 4-H. It can be Scouts, whatever fits
something busy.
I'm in.
But the kids come out of those programs as they have some more leadership skills. They have public speaking skills. They have interaction skills. And so that's kind of missing in some of the things that kids have the opportunity to do anymore. And
plus, they're plenty busy, and when they are busy with good things, they don't have time for bad things.
Well, you said it. And there's a lot of traveling sports teams, and those offer different things as well.
Right.
Maybe not some of the same things as scouting or youth or 4-H programs, but
they all take
things.
a dedication.
They do.
And the spin-off, as I said, the word responsibility is terribly important to a young man or young lady growing up. And unfortunately, in today's socioeconomic situations where they have one parent or perhaps even no parents in charge, that word kind of falls by the wayside, and we're all the poorer for that. Each and every one of us are all the poorer for that, because responsibility teaches a person to take charge.
Sure. And to control one's destiny instead of falling into whatever somebody else has got for you.
Yeah. As we bring Viewpoint to a close this morning, we brought to a close a gentleman career who's been terribly important to Lincoln and Logan County, and not just to the farmers. Those of us who grow trees or have shrubs and plants, didn't hesitate to go to John Fulton for a little advice, and we never got charged a farthing for that, did we? So that was a part of his service to Lincoln and Logan County. John, last couple of seconds here, would you like to sum up?
Well, I put out an email, and it went something like 350,000 blog hits and 20,000 4-H kids and thousands of animals tattooed, and in the end it's been like the credit card commercial, priceless, and I thank all the people of Logan County for the support through the years, and hope that it continues for the program. I'm kind of vested in it with my time, my wife's time, my mother's time, between all three of us. She was a home ec advisor, so between all of us, I think we logged about 91 years or something like that.
I bet.
So there's quite an investment in it, and even my in-laws in Iowa, my mother-in-law was a state 4-H officer back in the day, and my father-in-law and brother-in-law served as chairman of the elected extension councils in Iowa. They're actually on the ballots and so forth, so there's a lot of family commitment to it.
Yes.
So it's been in your bloodline almost forever. Yeah. Going right back to that great little farmstead in Germany. Well, what a story that was. We'll close Viewpoint with this comment about agriculture. I found this morning, that the discovery of agriculture was the first great step towards a civilized life. And maybe there's something to be said for that, too. Thank you very much, John Fulton.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything.